Holy Week. And I know that in the bulletin, we had some words from Charles Fillmore, where he says, the word Jerusalem comes from the root word shalom, Jerusalem, the holy city. It symbolizes within us the habitation of peace, possession of peace, vision of peace, or abode of prosperity within us. So if we take the story of Holy Week symbolically and we look at what it can mean for us, our master teacher Jesus was coming into Jerusalem. He knew that there was a purpose for him, and he already knew the outcome of this week. Unlike others, he already knew what the week would hold. And so he's coming into the city of Jerusalem through the gates. And there are palm branches that have been laid down for him. And the palm branches meant that what they would typically do is to lay them down for royalty, meaning we adore you, we appreciate you. A lot of times it was for royalty, but Jesus wanted none of that. And so there's the symbolism of his riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, okay? So we have the humility of coming into the city of peace on a donkey. So I want you to visualize that and think about that. And the various things that he came into that week, he was coming for the observance of Passover that week, which would have been a typical trip for an observant Jew, which he was, and his friends were, as well as his family. He ran into a lot of different things that week, didn't he? He even had doubt like we do. It said when he was in the garden that he asked God, would you take this cup from me? Of course, he had a bit of fear and doubt and wanted a different outcome. But you know what? He went through it anyway. He chose to go through it, and that's what the lesson for us is there, that sometimes we know there are things we need to go through. We don't hide from them. We don't go around them. The way to strengthen our faith is to go through them and use our faith to do that, and our strength and our courage. He was asked to come before Pilate and report. What had happened was that the Jewish, they had their hierarchy too. There were different levels of hierarchy. When he got to the temple, he saw that the Jews there that were running it, they had allowed gaming in the temple. And he said, this is not the proper usage for a temple where we need to worship God. And so we need to remember that too with our own thoughts. The symbolism here is we don't, to keep our own thoughts, our own temple pure of thoughts. We don't hold anger, resentment. We keep our temple as pure as possible to keep it holy, to keep this sacred space. And so as he traveled through the city, there are, of course, those that wanted to be healed. And another example is just by touching the hem of his garment. Another piece of the story. Isn't that beautiful? There's a painting that I just love, cannot remember the name of the artist, but the name of it is The Hem of His Garment. And he's all you see is a sandal and the hem of his robe, and just barely a hand reaching up to touch the hem of his garment. And that's another piece of developing our faith, right? By your faith, you will be healed. So that's another piece of faith and another symbolism of some of the stories that we find there. The stories are all very touching. In this Holy Week, sometimes we wonder, how could it be named Holy Week when at the end of it, this one that these Jews, remember the Jews that were in the hierarchy, the higher hierarchy, they were afraid of him. And it's why he was crucified, you know, is that they're the ones that kept reporting him to the Romans because they were afraid that what they had going there, you know, with the Roman, they had a pretty neat arrangement with the Romans, and that was if they did their part, the Romans would leave them alone. You know what I mean? And so they didn't want to rock the boat. And they could see that this man, Jesus, was going to. And he had a following. And that's what was going to happen there. So they're the ones that reported him. And but it's a story that was meant to turn out that way. Okay, so it was meant to be. But then toward the end, we see that what he actually came to say in the real story was this, that he had come to tell us that we can be reborn any moment. The moment we reach for peace, the moment we decide that God is in me too, and I can find heaven right here on earth. I don't have to be crucified. Nothing else has to happen here. And it was the symbolism of his returning, was to show us that right here on this earth we can be close to God by accepting that grace. So what we do in our current day telling of this story is that we've made it more modern, haven't we? We've made it a bit more modern, and we need to make it real for this culture that we're living in. We don't live in that culture then, when there was a harsher environment. But we live now, but we still have some pretty harsh thoughts, don't we? There's some pretty harsh things that can go on, and we still pray for that. On one of my walks, I think it's probably now been 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I had walked in the afternoon. It was on a Saturday, and I walked in the afternoon because it was finally warm enough and sunny. And as I was coming from the west down at the harbor, down at the marina at Long Beach, walking along, got fairly close, I saw somebody over at Steve's Marina waving at me like this, just, waving up and down. I thought, I guess he's waving at me. I looked over more closely. Oh, well, that's Tony. And I think I see John Lipscomb and Andrea. And so as I walked on around the corner, I walked around to where they were, and they had just had lunch at Steve's. And I'm giving them an advertisement today, aren't I? They'll need to pay us for the advertising. But they had just eaten lunch, and it was such a beautiful day. They were just standing in the sun, enjoying it and enjoying the fellowship. And so John, we got into a discussion about walking, and John said, oh yeah, I saw her way over there, way before she crossed the road. And I knew it was her. He said, everybody has a unique walk. And I could see that was her over there. And I was thinking about that this morning, and I was thinking that, each and every one of us does have a unique walk, don't we? We're proud of that. That's who we are. We're in these bodies, and we're standing on the shoulders of others that have gone before us. And sometimes we may walk just like our dad or our mom, but not exactly like them, because we're each unique. We have our own purpose. We have our unique gifts that are only ours. And I guess then that made me think of what we've included in the bulletin this morning too. And that's my intention for how I intend to walk through this life. And I hope you'll think about that too for the remainder of the day, maybe for the remainder of the week. Through the remainder of my life, I intend to walk gently, to remember that all paths are hallowed ground, all of them. All of them. No matter the challenges or circumstances, I intend to walk in peace, joy, and gratitude. I will walk gently with others while we're walking together. Bless them as our paths take different directions. If life is a journey, then how I make that journey is important. How I walk through life is what matters. How I treat others today matters. Shall I walk with deep reverence and gratitude? Shall I walk with fear, anger, resentment, blame, self-righteousness, or maybe another negative trait? I get to choose. It's my choice, this moment, this day, tomorrow, and the day after that. I hope you'll choose to walk lovingly, gratefully, wisely. Not only make this a holy day and a holy week, but make each and every one of them holy. Thank you for your time.